Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast. Today, my guest is Daniel Hickman, who is a father, a business owner, and a podcast host. Daniel was living the American dream, living in a 5-bedroom home, earning a good income, when suddenly his mother-in-law passed away. At that point, him and his wife had to go and clear massive amounts of material objects out of her home and ended up donating almost all of it. This was the turning point for Daniel and his family when they discovered that they don't want to follow this path of accumulating material objects that no longer held value for them. They wanted to have a life of experiences. They wanted to live a life of freedom. And so they sold all their possessions and began to live the nomadic life. They lived in an RV for a while and then began renting in different locations around the United States. And this is the path of them doing just that and homeschooling their children and unschooling their children. I hope that you'll enjoy this episode. If you do, I'm interviewing somebody next week with a similar story about road schooling and unschooling and how this path is possible if this is your dream. So I really hope you'll enjoy this episode and find some inspiration here. Please, if you are, give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. And I want to thank you so much for being here today. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast, a place to explore possibility through mindfulness, movement, and self-discovery. Our intention is to deliver insight and inspiration while fostering conversations that are genuine, unfiltered, and deeply human. We hope you will enjoy today's episode. Hi, Daniel. Welcome to the Connected Community Podcast.
How's it going, Nikki? How are you? Thanks for having me on.
I'm happy to have you. You've got such an amazing story, and there's so many different ways that we could take our conversation. But what intrigued me most about your lifestyle is that you're living the nomadic lifestyle, and I'm so curious to hear about that path and how you got started with that.
Yeah, it's I think just taking a huge risk, and having a traumatic situation with my mother-in-law passing away, and us realizing that things are just things, and just made us really take a microscope of how we were living in the cubicles, rushing to work, rushing home to pick up our kids from daycare. That was like another mortgage. Keeping up with the Joneses in a nice neighborhood. It didn't equate to like what life is supposed to be. And we changed the whole generational pattern of what it was supposed to be, which is work until 65 and hoping to retire at that time, or hope to live till that time. So we decided to take life in our own hands, and I bootstrapped my business, which is a physician recruiting company. And it allowed me to just randomly work yesterday for a couple hours, to not work yet today, but I know I'm going to crush it tomorrow. So it's like every day you get what you put into it. But it allows me to work anywhere, wherever there's a computer and where there's no kids screaming, because I have 3 daughters. So yeah.
And so when people think of nomadic, I feel like they usually think of somebody living in a van, kind of wandering from place to place, and that's a little bit different for you. So what does that nomadic lifestyle mean for you?
For us, it's not being tied down to one place. So like people that start a business, a dry cleaning company in a store, where they're renting that spot, they're stuck here. They have to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
For us, we don't want to stay in one place. We don't know if Florida is our forever place, but I mean, if we want to live in Costa Rica, we could. It just depends on if we want to be that far away from my family and my parents. So we basically rent homes in different cities throughout Florida, and kind of just explore. We lived in St. Augustine, Ponte Vedra, Jacksonville, Fernandina Beach, Fort Myers, Sedona, Arizona. We've lived outside of Dallas and Waxahachie, Texas. But most of it's been in Florida. So it's just for us, a nomadic lifestyle means we're not stuck in one neighborhood, and we're allowing our kids to experience and live life with us in our experiences versus them learning everything in school. They're in homeschool. So they learn here, or sometimes we put them in nature school.
Yeah, I'm most curious about that when people have families, because I have a 10-year-old too, and I'm intrigued by all of this, and I've done a a little bit of traveling on my own. I backpacked around the world for 2 years by myself, and I definitely lived out of a backpack and had that nomadic
That's
lifestyle
awesome.
pre-kid. And I think the educational component is the part that is really daunting for me. So what does that look like for you?
I think education's changed. For me, I have a master's degree, I have a graduate degree, a graduate high school, have everything. But realizing that when I was done playing minor league professional hockey, my awesome master's degree didn't get
Mhm.
me what I needed.
Yeah.
My two hands and my brain and hard work is what got me to where I am today. But for me, I feel like teaching my kids that they can create their own life and they can be their own boss and they don't need to ask or beg their boss for time off. When my kids have a birthday or they're sick right now, they're all sick. Like our
Oh,
entire
no.
house is sick. But I can imagine like going to my boss and like, hey, I got to take today off again, and then use that for vacation and PTO. And then
Mhm.
what about when I want to go on vacation? Like we could go on vacation whenever we want to, but we don't do it just cause. But for me, to go back to your question, education with my kids is really just it's like unschooling. It's really teaching them everything that we know along the way while they're asking questions, but also we have these standards, huge booklets that they go when we do at least 4 to 8 pages a day, but not every single day. So it's not rigid, but they are learning quite a bit. The best part was that we traveled by RV for a couple of years, and then my kids went back to nature school, and the teachers were like, "Wow, they're not that far off. They're like really intelligent." So that just says a lot about what we were doing. And I have a different way of teaching. I'm more like more rigid with the book with my kids, but my wife is more like this teacher about life and this like just the right and the wrongs. And we want to teach them how to manage money, how to start a business, how to be your own boss, how to live life. For me, it was just always like I couldn't wait till recess in school. I always
Yeah.
had bad grades because not because I was dumb, it was because I just didn't know. I wasn't interested in it. For me, I feel like I didn't really learn much until I was forced to in high school. They were like, hey, if you get two Fs, then you can't be on the team. And at that time, I realized that hard work and studying hard, doing hard hours and what you're doing will get you the answers, but I was forced. It wasn't willing.
Mhm.
So my kids are willing to learn and explore, like, that they get to experience without the distractions at school. Like, hey, what are you wearing? Hey, what group are you part of? Hey, I'm going to bully you today. Or because you're going to get bullied, you got to bully other people. It's survival of the fittest in public school. I've done it.
Mhm.
I've been picked on. I've picked on. Been beat up. I've beat up people. Um, where they're not in that atmosphere. They're literally free willed to feel or think whatever they want to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I've always heard with homeschooling that the actual amount of homeschooling is really like something like 2 to 4 hours a day. Does that sound right?
So with my company, literally I can have 2 hours and no one bothering me and I can get so much done.
Mhm.
And that's what I feel with my kids. I mean, they live in the library. They come home with like 32 books that are in these huge Whole Foods bags.
Yeah.
And they're literally just bookworms. They're reading so much. I mean, obviously, there's that little small piece of seeing how can they interact with more kids, but I mean, they have soccer 5 days a week, hockey 2 days a week, ballet once a week. So we are like totally active.
Mhm.
So they don't miss that piece. They don't miss that piece of the stress side of it. Um, Going to school, but nowadays, especially in Ponte Vedra, Beach is the number one school in the state of Florida, and that's one reason why we moved down here. But like we said, when we learned everything and saw how the kids were being treated, it's basically whatever they can do to keep that stat alive, regardless of the stress of the kids,
Yeah.
regardless of how much you're forcing them to testing. Um, my daughter was at soccer and she overheard a girl say like, yeah, we have 4 hour testing today for the state. And yeah, I mean, that's what public
Mhm.
school will have you do. They'll have you
Yeah.
test for 4 hours, pencil and a paper, and they'll establish how smart you are. But I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't
I
do that
mean,
well on the SATs myself, but
yeah.
I have my own business and doing well.
My little boy is in third grade. He's 9, and he has Colorado testing today, like this week, CMAS testing, and it's 3 to 4 hours a day the whole week.
Yeah.
We opted him out because I think like that's just insanity. 3 to 4 hours a day of testing
How old is he again?
9-year-olds.
9.
9. Yeah.
Jesus.
First of all, they can't. They really shouldn't even be able to sit still that long,
No.
and they can't. I don't see how they could even test their ability in that length of time without them losing concentration, like no brain
Yeah.
breaks, nothing, just sitting around. So he's sitting in the library all week. And the other
Yeah.
kids are testing, but I'm fine with
Good
that.
for you.
But like how insane that they have that expectation for our children to spend 20 hours this week testing.
Yeah. Just think about how they feel, though. I'm
Oh, they're
being
anxious.
forced to sit here
Yeah.
and write on this piece of paper, and no one's talking to me, and I'm just trying to figure it out for that long. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 40 years old. I don't know how old you are, but I did not have to do that.
No,
Um,
no, not like that.
I
No. And
remember the
they
little blue
spent
books.
Yeah, they spent 2 weeks talking to them, trying to ease their anxiety and their fear and their stress around this testing. So
Yeah.
I asked my kid, "Do you want to do the testing or do you want to sit in the library and hang out?" Because at the end of the day, there's no benefit to it. It's just there's actually detriment.
Yeah. It's really for the school. It's how they get funding. That's how they stay
Yeah.
at their status where they are. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's not really about the kids.
Yeah. I keep hearing about, did you say forests? Nature school.
Yes. Nature
I
school.
totally
Yeah.
want to know about nature school. I
Yeah.
wish
They
I went to
did.
nature
It
school.
was, it was awesome. They would be back there today, but we live too far. It would just be like an hour every morning. They would
Mhm.
just not be happy. But nature school was cool. You can go Monday through Friday. They only did 2 to 3 days a week. And it's just full of positivity. You're outdoors. If it's raining, they'll go under covers. If there's like a thunderstorm, then they'll alert the parents when you got to go there and go get the kids. I don't know how I would do that if I had a regular office job,
Right.
but it was just a good atmosphere. The teachers were just so like nice, and the classes were small. There was only maybe like 8 or 9 kids per class. Um, they're super behaved. You didn't really have to worry much about bullying. They have certain standards where they just allow the kids to be free, but they also knew when learning was, and but also unity, community, respecting each other. I mean, it's not cheap. It's just like regular prep school, but like it was worth it. I would definitely recommend it if it's as long as it's the right organization. They liked it. I mean, they got
Mhm.
bit by mosquitoes. They were climbing on trees. Um, they were just in nature. It was cool. They
Yeah.
were just living it.
Yeah.
Or-
And then how do you do the socialization element? I know that you've talked about like your kids being in sports. And so are those sports connected outside the school? And are they feeling a little bit left out where there's community already established within those teams or those sports or activities and they're kind of like the new person coming in?
So there's being social is good, but there's other sides that are not good. So our kids are learning things that they're not supposed to. For example, there's a lot of like the gay pride and lesbian pride. I don't care, whatever people want to do it. It's fine. That has nothing to do with me. But we went out to eat in Savannah, Georgia after a hockey tournament, and all the girls sitting around the table. And I overhear one of the girls saying to the other girl, like, "Hey, like, where do you stand with like, do you support lesbians or do you not like it?" It's like, whoa, like this girl's 8 years old, okay, and it's a cell phone.
Wow.
My what? My
8.
yes, my daughter should not be. She wasn't talking to her, but my daughter should not be
Mhm.
having a discussion like that at 8 years old at the
Yeah.
table by herself. But there's other things like, I think my daughter for hockey, she was only one not invited to go to a specific birthday party. Um, and she was sad. So it has ups and downs, and we're learning about it a lot. But nowadays, we don't have much in common with the other parents
Yeah.
because they're so conventional, and it's okay for people to
Yeah.
be conventional. We're different. There's nothing wrong with that. But for us, like we won't drink tap water. We won't drink any or eat anything that has chemicals in it that we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Um, like for example, there's a girl in Girl Scouts that we hang out with that has a whole bag of gummy bears or Starbursts or something always in a backpack, huge one from BJ's. It's like and she's just trying to pass them out. We're like, my girls know better. Like, hey, no, we don't have that. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Or like after soccer, there'll be cupcakes, and my other daughter will be like, no, sorry, I won't have that, but I'll have the banana and the orange. Like they know better.
Mm-hmm. Do they
So
feel like they're missing out, or they're good with that? Like that's their own.
I think initially, but when we found options that were better,
Yeah.
so for example, when it's let's go get ice cream, we're not going to Dairy Queen. We're going to go to Mayday Ice Cream because they have
Yeah.
homemade ice cream there, or we're going to buy it a big carton of organic ice cream at Publix, and just let her take it to the face. And it's like you don't have to go to the
Yeah.
most toxic place in town just to fit in.
Yeah.
And I think at this point they're okay with it because they
Mm-hmm.
know it's their body, and we taught them that's your responsibility. That if you put toxins in your body,
Yeah.
that's up to you. It's your body, but we can't pay attention to everything, but you can ask us questions. And it's really cool to just to see them say like, no, thank you.
Yeah. How old are they?
Without, the 8 and 10 know that. The youngest one just kind of like wants everything. She's
Yeah.
only 4, but, yeah, we're
Yeah.
just trying to just raise them to be humans, to live a long, healthy life, not to hate on everyone else. We teach them like, hey, whatever they do in their family, totally fine. Like we're not here to change them, but we can at least take care of our circle. But if
Yeah.
someone wants to learn about it, we can share it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm finding that with my 9-year-old, it's starting to get to the point where he's got these friends, and then a lot of them are into. We don't do a lot of screen time either. A lot of them are into really violent video games,
Yeah,
really violent, like extreme. And so it's that balance between, yeah, trying to find those families that are in alignment with us is really tricky.
it is.
That he's not familiar with any of those dark movies, or I don't know what the kids are watching. And same thing, there's kids that are 9 years old that are walking around with cell phones, and who knows what's being monitored on them. So I'm feeling that struggle too with trying to get that right socialization, the right amount of it, but the appropriate amount and the appropriate people.
It's tough because I've been in the cookie cutter neighborhood, 5 bedroom house built from scratch in this neighborhood with basically a hub where you don't have to leave. You're just there. People with golf carts. There's 15-year-old, 13-year-olds riding golf carts everywhere, and it's this atmosphere where the parents are almost in college, where like every single Friday night and Saturday night they are partying to the point
Yeah.
that they don't even know where their kids are
Yeah.
or what they're doing. I've been in that mix and I've walked away, which is great. Um, but that's what's happening to a lot of these kids that are indulging into the dark stuff and the dark video games. Like, there's just no supervision because the parents are just out there doing their own thing.
Yeah.
So to have my kids jump in to a play date with those kids is like, no.
Yeah.
um,
I wonder how that's going to pan out as they get older and they're wanting that independence and they're wanting that connection with their peers.
Yeah, and I think they're getting that with us being more situated. So we want to stay more potentially in this town. They're really liking it. And my daughter's making friends at soccer and Girl Scouts, and seems to be like, we're getting that feel like, okay, this is the nomad families, like, this is our town.
So maybe
So,
no more nomad.
well, there's other ways of doing it. We've thought about like, we'll go somewhere tropical for 3 months or something, go rent a house or something. So there's also that talk as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And is your plan to homeschool them all the way through their education?
I don't know. We're kind of just toying with it. Our oldest,
Mm.
we're getting to a level, I think, beginning of next school year, we'll probably have to get her into some kind of online teaching program,
Mhm.
um, because she's too bright.
When you homeschool, do you have to belong to a school?
No. So you can have your activity books,
Mm.
and I usually, when they finish each page, I write down the date in my initials just so that they knew they did it. From there, we take all that information, we send it to a school officer or whatever you want to call it, and then they basically review all the work that person has done, and they approve them for the next grade.
Yeah. I'm still curious about the socialization piece because this is my biggest concern and struggle is as they get older, especially because yours are pretty young and moldable right now.
Yeah.
and not so fiercely independent, because I do think socialization is important. And then like how you're going to piece that in.
I think
Um,
we play it by ear.
yeah.
I mean, my whole relationship with my wife and being married and having my kids, everything we've made our decisions based off of feel and gut and just revising and falling on our face and doing it again. Yeah, I think she's going to want to be more social, my oldest, and we're going to have to figure something else out. But for right now, up until they're 10, this plan has been perfect.
Are there not like homeschool groups? Because I almost
There
picture
is.
like the ideal situation would be to gather, 20 families that are homeschooling and create some kind of group.
There is, like, there's one down the road that's actually really good. It's just we're very picky and protective over our kids to make sure that it's the right atmosphere. But yeah, there's a
Mm.
lot of groups, but I guess for us, for our family, we've been that social person. And then once my mother-in-law passed away, who had a house right next to us, everything changed. We realized it's not about having these close friends that are not really friends. It's about having those really best friends that are there for you no matter what, even if you can count them all on one hand. It's just about quality, basically. It's not about filling more things in. I know when I lived in the planned community, like it was just like barbecue here, go over there and have beers with Johnny, and then go to this and then go to that. It was like we were just filling ourselves with all this void, filling emptiness within us. And my wife's a herbal healer, but she's also a Reiki healer, so she helped me and herself just realize what really matters in our life. And it's not about just being cool and fitting in. It's about just being there for your kids and giving them the best life that you can.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in that Reiki course right now, and it definitely is transforming my life. I'm just kind of curious if there was this distinct aha moment that shifted everything for you, where you just kind of like woke up and everything was just clear.
Um, it was when we had to clean up my mother-in-law's house after she passed, and we had to donate all that stuff to donation place, and they pulled up their truck and they just took everything out. And before you know it, like everything is just gone. You just realize that things are just things, and it doesn't matter what you buy, what gadget you buy at Brookstone to make you feel good. It's really about the memories that you create and the legacy you leave behind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that too, like wanting to spend money on experiences for my kid and my family versus things, so that when holidays come up and my mom's saying like, what can I get him? It's more like a museum membership, or take him to the
Yeah,
symphony, or take him to a play, or take him somewhere and let's have that experience, because that's what you can hold on to, is those experiences and those memories and those moments where you kind of wake up a little bit.
yeah, spot on.
Yeah.
That's what we do too. Because so many times my mom will buy something, and then the kids want to just donate it to the Goodwill at 3 months later. So we try to do things like take my daughter loves dinosaur museums. Um, take them to the beach. We see sunrise every morning. Um,
You see sunrise every morning?
yeah, my
Your whole
wife's
family?
well, not the whole family, but my wife will drive to the beach every single morning to get
Wow.
sunrise for her, solitude because she's with the kids all day when I'm working. Um, and then like me and my daughters will stand out in the driveway and watch the sunrise. So it's just it's
That was
part of the
beautiful.
circadian rhythm. If you're into that, if
Yeah.
it's kind of waking you up. So at night we try not to look at LED lights when the sun goes down, because we want to tell our body that it's ready to go to sleep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some other things that you've done to kind of tune your kids into nature and to themselves, and to like trusting their own intuition, their own self?
Um, we make them get outside.
Mhm.
I think it's forcing them to be outside. Not so much the force, not so much that
Right.
word, but
They love
it's
it.
more like go be kids, go outside.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy for parents to be like, "Oh, you're bored? Okay, put the TV on and have
Yeah.
the babysitter LED TV babysit you." But then they sit there and they're just numb. They don't even know
Yeah.
what to do with themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think getting outside is the key to everything. As soon as our kid gets home from school, we put him outside as long as it's not, horrible weather here in Colorado. But I find that too, that we have so many toys, and yet he will play with sticks and rocks all day long, or he'll even play with the chopsticks all day long with his
Yeah,
imagination, and he's not even playing with the toys. He
exactly.
loses interest so quickly. When we put him in front of the TV, sometimes he won't even finish a movie because he gets bored and
Yeah,
over it. But I think it is a crutch that a lot of people use. I think especially when people have more and more kids, then the
yeah,
TV and the computer and the video games start to become their world.
yeah. We've done it. I mean,
It's
so
amazing how quickly they get bored with their toys.
so quick. I mean,
Yeah.
we have to throw them away or donate them. It's just
Yeah.
so wild.
And that never happens in nature. As long as he's outside, he's happy, and he can be out there for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yeah,
And then if he's inside playing with his toys for, 2 hours, he's telling me he's bored.
yeah. Or my oldest will start telling me things to do. She's like, "Hey, can you do this?" She starts like
Mhm.
bossing me around. I'm like, "Hey, like I'm still working." So we've set those boundaries. Took a
Mhm.
while, letting him know like, "Hey, when I'm in the office, like you can't come in because I'm like in the middle of an email, maybe a phone call." Um, so letting him know, but knowing
Mhm.
that like when it hits like 4 or 5 o'clock, it's time for daddy to play with my kids or work out in the garage while they play outside in the basketball
Yeah.
hoop or stuff like that.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for anybody that is interested in the nomadic life with kids and how to navigate that and go down that path?
Um, I I think it just stems to your relationship with your spouse. I mean, she's my best friend, like, and we've been through things that are ups and downs, and you have to have a solid relationship before you decide to do something like this. And you have to know each other inside and out. And then you have to disconnect yourself from worrying about what other people think, including your family and your closest friends, and just whatever you and your spouse think is best for your family, just do it. Living free is priceless, and I think allowing my kids to see me be my own boss and being there for their birthdays and not missing their games and just being present, being around them all the time, I think is something that they're never going to forget. And before you know it, they're 15, 16, 18 out the door, and this is our
Yeah.
time with them. Think about it.
Yeah.
This is your time with your kids before they turn into little adults.
Yeah, it happens so quickly, and they need
It
us. This
does.
is when they need us the most, and that's, hopefully why we have kids, is to turn them into like little good humans.
Yeah. Respectful, good, hardworking
Mm,
humans, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
Yeah.
and like prioritize their priorities, right? Like what's important to them and what's important to us and what's important
Yeah.
in life and what's not important and
And that's
superficial.
and that's how we live forever. It's just passing our
Hmm.
torch. Everything we know to our kids. If they don't use it, great, whatever. If they do, great. Um,
Yeah,
Nothing is permanent, nothing is forever, but living our legacy and what we left behind is forever. So,
yeah,
any positive things I could teach them is the goal.
yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk a little bit about your podcast and what you're doing and how people can connect with you if they're interested in that?
Yeah, my podcast was created because I put work first and making money first, billing $5 million a year for a company to be a third in sales for my company first, and I lost myself. I gained 40 pounds. I got a 38 to 40 waist, and I was a minor professional hockey player, and I was embarrassed to tuck in my shirt, and I lost myself. I was trying to compete more into things that are not physical, um, like beer pong or fantasy football. Who can have
Hmm.
the best lawn? Whatever, anything.
My lawn
You
is
know?
greener.
Yeah, yeah. Look at that edge cut. But I would spend like hours out there, and I was just that. Those are the little things when we should really be worrying about ourselves and how we are inside and
Hmm.
outside. I started this podcast because I was lost, and a lot of men want to do it on their own. And I wanted to create a podcast where dads or husbands or men can relate and just get a little guidance and motivation and inspiration to take their health back and take it seriously and realize that the more we fill our cup, the better we can fill others. And that's the whole purpose of the podcast. So I interview dad athletes, CEO dads, anyone that has done something spectacular or just average Joe, and just learn tips and hacks from them, and just share that with the community.
Yeah. And it's called the Competitive Edge Podcast.
Yes,
Yes.
fatherhood, fitness, and focus.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for your time today and for sharing your story and opening up. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. And if there's anything I could do to help, just let me know.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Community Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. I can be found at www.nikkiyoga.com, NICKYYYOGA.com. Until I see you again next week, I hope you have a beautiful day.